I just got back from a 7-day cruise from Amsterdam up to Norway on board Holland America's MS Rotterdam. This was my first time sailing on this ship, but more specifically, it was my first time sailing with this cruise line. So I figured I'd give you a complete ship tour and then we'll talk about my review afterwards. Starting from the bottom and working my way up, we have Deck 1, known as the main deck, which featured the Stuyvesant room, known for hosting the art auctions, and the Half Moon and Hudson rooms, which I believe were meeting and conference room spaces. You can also access the atrium from here, and this is a view looking down from a few decks above. The Plaza Deck, aka Deck 2, featured the World Stage, your main theater space for the larger shows and performances. Tucked right next door was the library, a quiet nook featuring a robust selection of books and a scenic seating area for those looking to read with a view. The Billboard Onboard was just around the corner, this specific night showcasing a dueling piano set. It was also Holland America's Orange Party, hence the color palette and decor. The Notes Bar was a short jaunt away and a place for folks to indulge in a whiskey tasting. The Rolling Stone Rock Room was the center of entertainment most evenings with an impressive band covering all your favorite rock tunes. Vying for the spotlight, the B.B. King's Blues Club garnered just as much attention with a lineup guaranteed to get everyone up on the dance floor. This was the lower level of a 2-tier venue. I found it even more enjoyable to watch performances from the second level where you can indulge in everyone's favorite pastime, people watching. A few steps away were the Ocean and Half Moon bars situated just across from the Pinnacle Grill, dubbed the ultimate steakhouse at sea. My brother dined here and said the food was delicious. Next door was Rudi's, featuring reimagined French cuisine. Unfortunately, no one in our group dined here during the sailing, so I can't attest to the food, but here's a look at the restaurant so you can get a feel for the ambiance. Along that same vein, Club Orange was an exclusive dining experience reserved for Club Orange members only, so maybe I'll be able to share with you my thoughts on a future sailing. Where I did eat, however, and frequently, was the main dining room, which spanned decks 2 and 3. My table was situated on Deck 3, known as the Promenade Deck. Service was wonderful, and we were consistently impressed by the food selection each evening. The photo shop was just outside the dining room, and the Grand Dutch Cafe was right past that. I think this cafe was a family favorite on this trip. It was the perfect spot for snacks and drinks. While we're in this area, I want to give a shout out to the fresh cut flowers found all over the ship. The arrangements were beautiful and just elevated that feeling of classiness. Guest services could be found right across from the Grand Dutch Cafe, and the shops, host to all of your favorite Holland America souvenirs, stretched midship just beyond. Of course, you've got your casino a few steps away, flanked by the upper level of the World Stage. But a place I always enjoyed escaping to was the lifeboat area, which was usually empty, especially on this rainy evening. Decks 4 through 8 were all staterooms with the exception of Deck 7, which held the Neptune Lounge, a private place for suite guests only. I casually peered in on a stroll past the lounge and just saw a few folks watching the news, so I don't know, it didn't seem that exciting to me. Deck 8 was my deck, the navigation deck. I was in stateroom 8020, which was a veranda cabin. Though I was traveling with family, I was in this room alone, so it was plenty of space for just me. But I have to say, it did feel larger than other cabins I've stayed in on other ships, including my most recent trips on the Norwegian Joy and Royal Caribbean's Harmony of the Seas. Not sure if it's actually bigger, but perhaps the layout and decor is what made it feel that way. All in all, I loved the sleek and sophisticated design and would rate it among my favorite cabins I've had the pleasure of staying in. And a huge bonus of this particular stateroom, I promise this was not planned, was its proximity to the greenhouse spa and salon, just one staircase away. If you've watched any of my cruise videos before, you know I'm a sucker for all things spa, and you can bet that I took advantage of the week-long pass to the greenhouse retreat, and I also booked 2 separate massage treatments. Holland America, I'm ready to be a spa influencer whenever you need one. Jokes aside, the spa facility overall was top-notch. I loved indulging in the hydrotherapy pool, spending time in the steam room, and relaxing on the heated chairs. There were separate men's and women's sauna areas, which I always found to be empty. I routinely enjoyed my time in the sauna alone as we sailed away from various ports. The fitness center was right next to the spa and one of the largest gyms I've ever seen on a cruise ship. Great equipment and very well maintained. Of course, Deck 9 is known as the Lido deck, and it featured the Lido pool, the Lido bar, and the Lido market. The market had a healthy rotation of foods each day and was the easiest place to satisfy a craving on board. Awkwardly tucked within the market was the Canaletto restaurant. We did not have an opportunity to eat here this sailing, but hope to give it a try on a future vacation. Closer to the pool area, you can also indulge in gelato or make a quick stop at the dive-in, another family favorite, for tasty, quick-service food. Heading aft was the Sea View pool and bar. I loved this area of the ship, but it was also open to smokers, so I didn't find lounging near here to be super refreshing. I did pop by a time or two, however, to take in the views, and especially enjoyed experiencing it during the rockier moments of our sailing. What can I say? Rough seas can be fun. Deck 10, the Panorama deck, had 2 terraces overlooking this pool area and was also home to the Tamarind restaurant and Nami Sushi, which I managed to book as my specialty dining experience. Sushi was delicious and the waitstaff could not have been friendlier. The kids club was around the corner and closed for my viewing, and perhaps closed for our entire sailing since there were only a few kids on board. Past that was another entrance to the main pool area of the Lido deck. Up here we had the New York Deli and Pizza, which was just okay, and the Panorama bar. What I loved about this whole area was really the retractable roof. On those cold and rainy nights, they'd keep the roof closed, allowing us to comfortably lounge and enjoy the pool area. I was honestly surprised to see that more people weren't taking advantage of this. It was quite common to be among only a handful of people up here each night, and I'm starting to think it was a best-kept secret. The Sun deck, Deck 11, was home to the jogging track, which circled the perimeter of the retractable roof. Next to that was the sport court, which we loved. The court could be converted into a number of different games, but pickleball won the hearts of my family. We played while sailing out of Amsterdam, and again late night at sea. You'll also find a sun deck space with lounge chairs up here, which I admittedly only discovered on the last night of our cruise. Lastly, Deck 12, also known as the observation deck, featured the shore excursion desk, the exploration central and cafe, and the crow's nest. This area was consistently crowded with folks taking in the views, enjoying the company of friends and family, partaking in various games, and more. It was a really cool space, even though I could never find a chair. Outside was a walkway overlooking the retreat, a private area featuring a hot tub and plush loungers. The MS Rotterdam holds 2,668 guests and is the 11th ship in the Holland America fleet and the 3rd vessel in the Pinnacle class series, having made its debut in July 2021. And though it's one of the smaller ships that I've been on, it certainly packs a punch with the amenities and the service. And I think I'll start my review by talking about the theme of the ship, which is music. So if you are a music lover, this is the cruise to be on. Their evening entertainment lineup is packed with all sorts of music. I know on our sailing they had a rock band and a blues band. They had some classical music and some, I don't know if it was dubbed Broadway, but they had some Broadway tunes one night. So there's certainly something for everybody on this ship, and that's really what the evenings were centered around. You would typically hear people saying things like, oh, I'll see you at the rock band at 8 p.m. or we'll jump over to the blues band at 9 p.m. And people were making friends and gathering around those events. Something that was different on this cruise compared to other cruises I've been on was that though they had a main theatrical performance, which I believe was a dance number, it definitely wasn't the staple of the sailing. It wasn't in my opinion, it wasn't a must-see. The dance number was okay. The production was really cool as far as what they did with the video screens and all of that. But the dance number was just okay. You really were there to see the bands in those individual venues. That's my personal opinion again. So it's not like a Disney cruise where they're showing Aladdin, or I don't even know what they're showing these days, but there's no big event. It's mostly about the smaller performances throughout the ship, which is still cool in its own right. And another thing music themed was the decor around the ship. You would see artwork all over the place that represented different genres of music or eras or artists. And my personal favorite was a Whitney Houston piece of art that was made out of an old cassette tape, which I thought was really cool. Second point I want to talk about is the food, which I thought was great on this ship. If you saw my review of the Norwegian Joy, I believe last year, I rated that the best food I've ever had on a cruise ship. And that still holds true. Holland America didn't quite beat it, but this food was good. There's nothing to complain about. There are a number of specialty dining restaurants that you can try. I did the sushi, as I mentioned earlier in the video. My brother did the steakhouse, and both of those were great, very delicious cuisine. And the main dining was perfect. It was really, really good. No complaints there. The buffet was par for the course for buffet. I did like the rotation of food that they had. So yeah, really no complaints on the food. It was very good. I think my one quip would be that it was very difficult to find any late night dining other than room service. There was one venue, which I think was the New York Pizza Deli place. They had some late night snacks, which were okay. I mentioned that earlier. It wasn't the best food. It was, pretzel bites and things like that. Didn't taste that great. I think they were really catering towards those people that have been drinking for a while and just need some munchies. That's what it felt like anyway. So if you really wanted some quality food a little bit later in the evening, you'd have to go with the room service route. So I know this is kind of common on cruise ships, but I wish there would just be a 24/7 venue that had good, refreshing, and healthy food. Third point is all about the spa. So you know that I love going to any spa, whether it's on a cruise ship or at a hotel, any vacation, I book a treatment, and this was no exception. So the spa on the ship was a great facility. They had a huge retreat space. It was a shared space between men and women, a really robust area that featured a hydro pool, a hydrotherapy pool, a bunch of saunas, steam rooms, heated lounge chairs. I mentioned this all earlier, but it was really a great large facility for you to enjoy. So I paid for the week-long stay there, and I could pop in and out whenever I wanted. Of course, it's not 24/7, but they did have pretty lengthy hours each day. And shout out to Charisse from the spa. She really took care of us. And mentioning employees, it's important to note that they are trained to remember your name, which I found impressive, because you would just tell them your first name once and they would remember it for the length of the sailing. And I found that all across the ship. So that was a nice little touch from Holland America. And as for the massages specifically, though I didn't film or take any pictures of it, of course, the two massages that I got were great. I think I got the Thai poultice was my first one, and some sort of seaweed wrap concoction for the second one, which was my first time doing that. And it was really, really interesting. The table kind of started as a normal table, and then at some point I was wrapped up, and then it sank down into some floating tank. I had my eyes closed, or they were covered with cucumbers, I can't even recall, but something was happening, and it felt really immersive and very different from any treatment that I've had before, and it was pretty fun, and I felt very relaxed during it, though I was questioning what the hell was happening. Fourth point is about the Navigator app. So that is the app that you would have on your phone during the length of your sailing. I found it to be really intuitive and easy to use. I really liked how you could view the deck plans, how you could chat with other family members or friends on the ship. You can see upcoming events that were happening on the ship. I believe there was an area for you, if you booked an excursion, it would give you the barcode right there on the app, and that's what you would show them as you were getting ready to partake in that excursion. So that was pretty cool. And another cool feature was you could order dining through there. Not every restaurant did it. I think it was only one or two places did it, but you can place your order in advance and go for pickup. I believe that dive-in place that had the burgers and hot dogs was one of those venues that did that. So that was a nice perk if you're starving and just looking to go pick up your food at a quick pace. Another handy feature of this cruise was the port guide channel on your TV in your stateroom, and that featured just a little short video about each port before you arrived there that would give you the highlights of what you were gonna, or what you could potentially see at that port. The review from my family was, though that port guide was very helpful in identifying what there was to do, it gave you just enough detail to pique your interest, but it didn't tell you exactly how to accomplish those things. So it'd show you a really cool spot to check out, but wouldn't tell you how to get there. So that would be my only caveat with that, is it gave you just a taste or a teaser of what you could do, but you still had to do a little bit of the legwork to figure out, okay, how do I get there? How much does that cost? So it's very surface level, but that's why people like me make these port guide videos. So if you haven't seen it already, I made a whole video about my experience at each port in Norway, and you can give that a look to see what there is to do and how you go about getting to those places. And that brings me to my next point, which is all about the excursions. My family did a number of different excursions. I will just speak to one. I booked an excursion through the ship to do a bike tour in the port of Flåm, Norway. So it was, again, booked through the ship, and it was, we would take a train up through a valley, and then we biked our way back down to the port. And I found the price to be very well worth it. I found the guide to be extremely knowledgeable and just a lovely woman. We got a ton of information from her, and she just made it a great experience. So I have no complaints about the excursion offered through the ship, and I would highly recommend it. I mean, obviously this is going to be different anywhere you travel in the world on this cruise ship or with this cruise line, but my review was it was a great experience and well worth the cost. Last couple of things I'll mention is, again, this is my first time sailing with Holland America, and I booked it because they were offering a $1 deposit, which I haven't come across on other cruise lines so far. So it was really nice to not have to fork over a ton of money up front. I was looking through cruise itineraries and saw that these were advertised as $1 deposits, and it was really nice to just put down that dollar and save up, so when the time came to pay that bill, it was ready to go. And along that same vein, once I got onto the ship, there weren't a ton of upcharges. I know I spoke about that with the Norwegian cruise line. Didn't experience that on this cruise ship. Everything that you would assume might be an extra charge was an extra charge, but there weren't a lot of those gotcha upcharges. So it was nice to just pay that flat fee to have the cabin all-inclusive, essentially all-inclusive, and then you kind of knew intuitively, okay, if I want to dine at this specialty dining place, that's going to be an additional charge. But there weren't a lot of other things that came at me where I was like, oh wait, I have to pay for that? So that was nice to not have to worry about that. And lastly, the crew on the ship really made the whole experience the greatest. They were so pleasant, again, extremely personable, and they just added a level of class to this experience that really made it stand out from the rest of my cruise experiences. So I really give kudos to the staff and the training that they go through to be the way that they are, and really make you feel extremely comfortable, welcomed, and like you're kind of a part of the family. You've always lived on that ship, and they're just welcoming you back as friends. So it was a great experience, and I would certainly sail on Holland America again. I'm actually very eager to see what their other ships look like and check out some of their other itineraries, so I'll definitely be back. And again, if you haven't seen my other video about the ports that we went to, feel free to check that out after this one, and I guess I'll see you again on the next cruise.